Here are two problems where we're working with fractions. The first one is we are subtracting two fractions with different denominators. So remember, when we're adding or subtracting fractions, we need to find a common denominator before we can proceed. So if we take a look, we have 9. Let's see, we have 9 and we have 6. These are our two denominators. And to find the least common denominator, let's go ahead and factor out each number into its prime factors. So 9 we can factor out to 3 times 3, and 6 we can factor out to 2 times 3. So to find the least common multiple, you want to take the most of each factors. So we look at all the different factors we have for these two numbers. The factors are, we have factors of 2 and 3, right? Doesn't matter that they're not in, that they don't exist in both numbers, but the factors we have listed here are 2 and 3. So we take the most of each factor. So the most number of 2's we see for the is for 6. So we have 1 2, and we have 3 3's for 9. So our least common denominator, or our least common multiple, is 2 times 3 times 3, or 18. So the least common multiple, or the least common denominator, is the smallest number that both 9 and 6 go into. Okay? So now we're going to rewrite each fraction in terms of that least common denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to try to put those both over a denominator of 18. Erase this. Okay, so if I look at my 7/9, what do I need to do to multiply to get the denominator to look like 18? Well, I need to multiply 9 times 2, right, and that'll get me to 18. So if I do that, I need to multiply the numerator by 2 as well. In doing so, I'm not actually changing the value of 7/9. I'm simply multiplying it by 2 over 2, which is the same as 1, right? So my new numerator is 2 times 7, which is 14. And when we talk about equivalent fractions, 7/9 is the same as 14/18. It's just represented differently, and it's not in its simplest form, but we have the right denominator that we want. So let's do the same thing to 1/6. So to get 6 into 18, I need to multiply it by 3, right? 6 times 3 gives me 18, so I need to multiply my numerator by 3. So here I take 1 times 3 and I get 3. So again, when I write an equivalent fraction, 1/6 and 3/18 are equivalent fractions. They have the same value, just 3/18 isn't simplified, but it has the right denominator that we need so that we can proceed with the subtraction. So once I have my common denominator, I'm going to go ahead and put that in the bottom, and I simply do the operation that I have with my numerators. So I have 14 minus 3 on top, and I go ahead and I do the subtraction. 14 minus 3 is 11 over 18, and that's my answer. So 7/9 minus 1/6 is 11/18. In this problem, we're asked to divide two fractions. If we're multiplying or dividing fractions, we don't need to find a common denominator. We just simply perform the operation. So remember, dividing by a number is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. Okay, so when we're working with fractions, it might be easier to think of it that way. So dividing by a number is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. Right, and the reciprocal is when we flip the numbers. So 5/8 divided by 3/20 is the same as 5/8, take the first number, I change it to a multiplication, and then I flip my divisor. So I flip the second number, okay? Now I simply have a multiplication problem. So that's just 5/8 times 20/3. Now I could go ahead and multiply across and get 100 over 24, but then I'd have to reduce. Sometimes it's better just to see if we can find any common factors in the numerator and in the denominator. And since we're multiplying, we can just, this is the same as 5 times 20 in the numerator over 8 times 3 in the denominator. So if I look at 20 and I look at 8, I'd see a common factor of 4, right? 4 goes into 8 2 times, and 4 goes into 20 5 times. So now I can multiply straight across. I have 5 times 5 gives me 25, and 2 times 3 gives me 6. So my answer is 25/6. And if I wanted to, I could write that in terms of as a mixed number too. Right? 6 goes into 25 4 times. 4 times 6 gives me 24, with 1 left over. So it's the same as 4 and 1/6. Right? These two are the same. And since it just says divide, it didn't tell me what form to leave my answer in. Either one of these answers is acceptable.